it out is they both want the same thing and they have to create the boogeyman. I mean, I think that's really enlightening.
Well, and I think it's also interesting to note here that, of course, Steve Bannon is a really bad dude. All right. Elon Musk is a really bad dude. And so you have these two, competing forces that don't like each other and boogeyman each other. But something interesting that I read is that Steve Bannon had this house, this rental house somewhere, and then somebody moved in and there was all this acid in the bathtub. Like the bathtub was completely rotted out. This is
I hate
really, really heavily reported. And similarly, Jeffrey Epstein, on the day that I think he was arrested, or maybe the day before, he ordered like 55,000 pounds of acid to be delivered somewhere. And it's just these really strange, like what
the fuck do you need that for?
And I'm just deducing here as an armchair investigator that's watched a lot of true crime. Acid would be used to destroy evidence of some sort.
Fuck? And even if it wasn't bodies,
interesting
it would be
take
something.
On this. I think that Bannon was currying favor with Epstein because Epstein had all the bodies. He knows where all the bodies are buried. He knows all the secrets. It's not that Bannon thinks that Trump is some great leader of our time. Bannon intuitively and instinctively understands that Trump is the Trojan horse, that he is the cult leader. So Bannon curried favor with Epstein so he could have the Coppermont as well.
There we go.
Because these dudes have very various plans for American democracy. They don't like it. It bothers them inherently that women are rising up. It bothers them that black people are trying to advance more and more towards equality. Hate it. I mean, a very slow journey to my black listeners, but this is what the impetus of all of this stuff is.
Hello.
Elon Musk is too big of a drug addict all the time to stay locked in and stay on focus and stay on the case. But this meltdown between these two has been going on for a really long time. Bannon was throwing Elon under the bus big time at the very beginning of Trump 2.0. I mean, the war room, he was just like a Southern Baptist preacher, hellfire damnation about Elon. And so now this is what's going to happen. This to me is a preview of what's going to happen as more and more of the Epstein files come. All of the pedophiles and pedophile protectors and pedophile enablers are going to start throwing each other under the bus.
They have
this is just a mere
preview
of what's going to start happening. All of these people, as evidence comes out, are not going to be able to keep their secrets together because the evidence is overwhelming. And generally, everybody except for the people within the MAGA cult oppose child pedophilia. The Moses Mike Johnsons of the world, the Kristi Noems of the world, the MAGA Christians of the world, they support pedophilia. And we can see that by their actions. They can tell us whatever they want to, but we can see with their actions that they support, protect, and hide pedophilia. So this is just a preview of, I think, the biggest mudslinging, shit slinging that's going to tear everything we thought about government down. And I almost think a lot of it needs to happen. And that's why I am a big advocate for a new Democratic Party that's not beholden to any corporations, not one billionaire. That is a party truly of the people. All right, I have the biggest pet peeve on the planet, like that caked nourishes your skin.
You know what I have a pet peeve against?
He does.
Ads.
He's going to now pay the legal fees for victims for speaking truth. Elon Musk offers to pay legal fees for any Epstein victim sued for speaking the truth. My two thoughts on this are, number one, he wants to distract from the fact that he was begging and pleading to go to the wildest night of the party on Epstein Island. He doesn't want people to know that. And he also wants to catch out people that he doesn't like, people that he views as enemies, AKA Steve Bannon. Well, we know Elon Musk doesn't pay the voters that he was going to pay $1 million to. That never happened. But I look at this and I think, okay, let's say that these victims come forward with a unified message about the abuse they suffered and or the how engaged Donald Trump was in Epstein's circle. Is he going to pay them, or is he going to cherry pick which victims he chooses to help. And in my mind, there's no question he will further silence the victims that come forward against people that he likes and wants to prop up, AKA Trump. And he'll just throw money at the people that want to bring down the same people that he wants to bring down.
He's not going to do any of this shit. It's none of the above. This guy is a ketamine addict and a Twitter addict that just throws tweets out arbitrarily, depending on how high or how low he is. He's not going to do any of this. He's not paying for any of that shit. This guy is a rage baiter who has to cheat. Elon Musk is a cheater. He has to cheat the algorithms. He has all these bots that boost his posts. He has to pay Trump $300 million to gain access to the United States government because he can't put his name on a ballot and run because he'd get his ass beat. He would lose. He would lose by double digits. He is full of shit. I don't take one thing he tweets seriously, nor will I entertain options as to what this deranged, demented person is going to do, because the answer is none of the above. He doesn't know shit from Shinola. He is a corporate welfare queen immigrant. He is the immigrant that's taking your jobs. MAGA.
He's the one.
He and his dipshit
He's
friend,
actually the
Peter
actual
Thiel,
immigrant.
an immigrant homosexual MAGA, which I don't have a problem with immigrants, and I don't have a problem with homosexuals. These two insane people have decided that you, MAGA Americans, can't have democracy anymore. You voted for two immigrants to come in, take your jobs via AI, and tell you can't have democracy. So I don't take anything Elon Musk says online. This is the same guy who fights with his baby mamas over child support. This is not a serious person. Anything he tweets is unserious. Even Trump and his chief of staff have thrown him under the bus. He has been relegated to the sidelines. He spent a shit ton of money in Wisconsin. He lost his ass. He's already said he's going to come out and fund Republicans because he's scared of going to prison.
This is true.
And I have to say, our job is to make sure that people, politicians, Republican or Democrats, that take corporate money that is also double dips and gives it to MAGA politicians, that candidate must be so toxic that they get their ass beat by double digits. And I just want to remind everybody, Elon Musk, Peter Thiel,
ass beat at
none
the
of
polls.
these people, JD Vance,
we're talking about,
can put their names on a ballot and win a general election.
This is true.
None of them. That's how unlikable these men are.
I completely agree with that.
They could not get on
the
the ballot.
Please like this video and subscribe to our channel, and we'll be back with more news.
Let's go.
When the autopsy is written on this horrific.
Hi, it's Monday, February 9th, 2026. You're tuned into Why America. I'm your lawyer friend, Legia Miller in Minneapolis.
Peppy Luscious, thanks for the $10. Don't answer if too personal, but I'm curious if friends turned adversaries like Rogan, Jimmy Dore, etc. have reached out to you since their fallout. I wouldn't know, bro, because I blocked both of their numbers. So, see, there's this thing when you have principles and you have values and you have convictions and you really believe stuff. When you see a former friend totally go off the deep end and humiliate themselves, that's what you do. Is you just, okay, well, I guess I'm done with this person. Cut them out of your life completely. So that's what I did. I cut them out of my life completely. And with Jimmy in particular, it's actually kind of funny. Not only did—
And by the way, this story that Kyle's going to plow into here in a second, I'm not sure if Kyle knows this, but this story has actually been told before on this podcast by Corin. I'm not sure if Corin even remembers.
Low latency on fucking YouTube. We've got it.
He was on our show back in the day, like 3 or 4 years ago.
It's not as good as Twitch, but it's better than nothing.
I remember being shocked at the time because Zach and I know about Jimmy Dore's narcissism. We know how crazy it is, and I don't blame Kyle at all for blocking his number.
I'm not really on YouTube for the views anyway. Don't worry about it.
By Jimmy Dore in our DMs on Twitter. He doesn't have our fucking.
If you like me on YouTube, use that.
There, but he has literally blown up our DMs based off of things that we said that he didn't agree with or approve of or whatever. I was like, what the fuck, bro? I don't give a shit what you think. Either way, I totally understand why he blocked Jimmy Dore. And again, this story is about to tell is totally crazy and something that we had the pleasure of getting out of Corin one time in the past.
That's so funny that you mentioned that, because had you not said that, I hadn't seen this clip yet. I was about to plow into that exact story and be like, guys, wait till we get to the end, because I've got a banger story for you that Corin spilled on our podcast. So obviously I'll wait for that. But yeah, it's hilarious that Kyle is not at all worried about making up with Joe Rogan or Jimmy Dore, but I can't say I'm surprised.
Yeah, and again, I totally understand with Jimmy Dore. With Joe Rogan, I feel like Joe Rogan's not the kind of guy that would blow up your phone with text messages. I can't really see that happening. He doesn't seem
He'd be like, "What's up, bro?"
Unhinged in that specific way, like Jimmy Dore is. But that is interesting that Kyle said he blocked Joe, because I remember asking Kyle the last time, or maybe one of the last times he was on our show, I was like, has Joe reached out to you since all of this went down? Has Joe reached out to you? Has he invited you back on the show to hash any of this stuff out? And Kyle said no. So I'm not sure if that was before or after he blocked Joe Rogan. But who knows? Maybe Joe Rogan's like out there texting Kyle like, please forgive me, come back on my show. And every time it just doesn't go through because he's blocked. That's pretty funny to think of. But anyway, let's hear the story.
I blocked his number. I also blocked his YouTube channel. I was like, I'm fuck this guy. I never want to see anything from him again.
Dude, and I've seen it firsthand where we went out to LA and that dude went ape shit.
Oh, have I ever? I don't know if we've ever told the story publicly. We should tell the story. So we were, I don't even know what year it was, maybe 2017 or something like that.
Oh.
We went to Los Angeles, and I was on TYT, and they had me stay after for like the post-game show, right?
I want to take a piss real quick.
And I had it slated where we go from TYT to Jimmy Dore after that, right? And so we get through the TYT shit, and they go, oh, can you stay for the post-game show? I go, sure, no problem. And I didn't know like how long it would be or whatever. Anyway, long story short, I was expecting it to go maybe 15 minutes or something like that. This shit ended up going for like 40 minutes or an hour, right? And so soon as I'm off air with TYT, I text Jimmy, who I'm scheduled to be on his show probably like 10 minutes from now or 30 minutes from then, right? And so I'm like, hey, man, just wrapped up here, on my way to you, right? He comes back over the top, fucking furious, saying all sorts of fucked up shit to me. Fuck you. Like,
what?
You would never do this to somebody else. You would never do this to Joe Rogan. You'd never do this to TYT, but you're doing it to me. And I'm like, I literally don't even understand why he's freaking out. And I guess the reason why was we put into the, the GPS, how far away is Jimmy's place from the TYT studio, and it was like an hour or something like that. And so I would have been late to it. And, we also hit traffic. So I was updating him and telling him like, hey, it says it's going to take this long or whatever. And he flipped out. I don't know. Ultimately, what was I going to be, an hour late?
If you come, Gavin and I are not as big. We're not nearly as high profile as a guy like Kyle, right? But if you come at us with that shit, are you fucking kidding? There's no way I'm still driving to your house to do the show with you. Like, I'm sorry I ran behind. Shit fucking happens. I book a show for a living too. Know how many times the guest has been like, fuck, bro, we're going to have to do this tomorrow. We're going to have to do this in 3 days. We're going to have to do this in 45 minutes. Stall while you're live on air for 45 fucking minutes. I've been there. I would never in my life treat a guest like that. Gavin would never in his life treat a guest like that, because you just got to be like, oh, fuck it. I bet Kyle wasn't even getting paid to go on Jimmy's show that day. You know what I mean? So you want him to volunteer his time? You're going to treat him like that? Are you fucking kidding me?
Yeah, I know, right?
So that alone is insane. And then the fact that Kyle was still planning on sitting through an hour plus of traffic to go do his fucking stupid show. Fuck that.
Yeah. No, Jimmy Dore is the most unhinged narcissist ever. As I said, we can personally confirm that from behind the scenes experiences from years ago back in the day. But yeah, I think this story basically sums up who Jimmy Dore actually is better than just about anything, because it's mind blowing. It's preposterous to imagine an adult treating another adult like that. Like someone who's literally your colleague, a professional colleague.
Jimmy Dore is a different kind of guy.
I can't fathom. I just can't fathom. I can't imagine treating anyone like that, let alone someone who I actually respected enough to want to invite them on my show in the first place. Like, what the fuck? You want this person on your show and you're screaming at them because they're going to be
Jimmy
late?
Dore is a different kind of animal,
late or something like that. Maybe 2 hours late at most. And it wasn't because I was snubbing him. It was literally because I was TYT held me over, and what was I going to do? Stop the segment in the middle of it and say, I got to get out of here? I didn't even know how long the drive was to get to Jimmy. So anyway, he flipped out like a motherfucker. He was texting me all sorts of fucked up shit. Did he call me too?
Shit.
Did he call me?
Yeah, everything, bro. I was even like, yo, this dude's ODing.
So anyway, he had like a literal fucking like alcoholic screaming ass meltdown because I was going to be a little late to his show. And I remember being the nice guy that I am, I was like, I'm not going to put him on blast publicly. And this is 2017 or whatever. I still like the guy. He's still largely.
Gavin and I, again, not as big a man as Kyle. I would have had Jimmy's ass on air the next time. I'd be like, fuck this asshole. This is how you treat people? Like, it's insane.
Oh, yeah, I would have leaked those messages. 100% I would have leaked those messages, just like Francesca Fiorentini did when Jimmy Dore sent her a string of unhinged, drunken, abusive text messages while he was on vacation in Italy. Imagine being on vacation in Italy and sending your colleague at the time, because she worked at the Young Turks while he did. Imagine sending your colleague an unhinged, drunken screed. Meanwhile, you're just chilling in like beautiful Venice, you know, and you're like, fuck you, you DNC op. So Jimmy's done this to everyone, ourselves included. Anyone who's basically ever crossed paths with Jimmy Dore and then proceeded to piss him off in any way gets this treatment, which is just crazy. It's fucking crazy. Obviously, Jimmy Dore at this point is barely associated with the left or with progressives or anything like that. But not that long ago, like when Zach and I started the show, he was.
Oh yeah, I mean, Kyle
he was.
Were seemingly friendly. Crystal was pretty friendly with Jimmy Dore. I mean, it seemed like the only people Jimmy wasn't friendly with were the Young Turks after they had their split up, and obviously there were red flags.
Even with Young Turks, they were friendly with Jimmy for a couple months, maybe 6 months or so before Jimmy started throwing bombs at him.
For sure. I just don't think we'd had our show at that point. I think by the time we were broadcasting, Jimmy was like fucking.
Sure.
Yep. We go again.
Everyone, ourselves included, anyone who's basically ever crossed paths with Jimmy Dore and then proceeded to piss him off in any way gets this treatment, which is just crazy. It's fucking crazy. Obviously, Jimmy Dore at this point is barely associated with the left or with progressives or anything like that. But not that long ago, like when Zach and I started the show, he was.
Oh yeah, I mean, Kyle and him were seemingly friendly. Crystal was pretty friendly with Jimmy Dore. I mean, it seemed like the only people Jimmy wasn't friendly with were the Young Turks after they had their split up, and obviously there were red flags.
Even with Young Turks, they were friendly with Jimmy for a couple months, maybe 6 months or so before Jimmy started throwing bombs at him.
For sure. I just don't think we'd had our show at that point. I think by the time we were broadcasting, Jimmy was like fucking just mercilessly going after Jank for the Katzenberg money. But it's really, really, really atrocious behavior. And again, the way people act privately reveals so much about them.
Yeah, 100%. So let's hear the rest.
He got that sweet deal, didn't he?
Left, sorry. And then we got another timestamp actually from the same Kyle and Corin episode where Kyle spills a little bit of tea about TYT and comments on his current relationship with Jake and Anna. So I'm excited for that too. Guys, everyone make sure to smash the like button, buckle your seatbelts, because we have a lot of tea left to spill.
Hit that like button on Twitch.
Going to put him on blast publicly. And
hit that subscribe button on YouTube.
I still like the guy. He's still largely on the left. You know what I'm saying? And so
it was weird.
I was nice about it, but now here we are years later, and this guy's totally off the fucking deep end.
10 subscribers
so now
on
I'm telling
YouTube.
The story
That's crazy.
about how he's a totally unstable, like alcoholic guy, you know, and like, and he burns bridges with everybody for no fucking reason. I mean, seriously, stop thinking about it. You're yelling at a grown ass man because I was going to be an hour late to your show. Like, and this is, by the way, it wasn't some live show. It was his YouTube show. You could wait an hour. It's not a fucking big deal. You know what I'm saying?
He was taping it?
Yes. And again, I didn't do it on purpose. I was held over by TYT. I didn't know it was going to last an hour, the post-game show. But anyway, that's what happened. Anyway.
By the way, if you want proof that Kyle's is a pretty mature individual, he still, even after this episode, continued to have some sort of a public relationship with Jimmy Dore. Kyle participated in the Force the Vote town hall or whatever it was. He supported Jimmy during that. And then, if you guys remember this, another piece of tea, you know, Jimmy was actually slated to come on Crystal, Kyle, and Friends, which was a pretty new show at the time. I think it was going to be like episode 10 or 15 or something like that. But right then, the week that it was going to happen is when the allegations came out against Jimmy Dore that he had sexually harassed Anna when he worked at TYT, and that was all blowing up. It was going crazy. It was a huge scandal unfolding. And apparently Crystal and Kyle told Jimmy, or they just canceled the interview. They didn't even really, reschedule it or anything. They just kind of canceled it. And that was the last straw between Jimmy and Kyle. But my point is just that, they still did have a relationship after this. Even after the insane, unhinged behavior that Kyle describes here, he was still willing to have Jimmy on his show.
Yeah, Again, he gave Jimmy so much more rope than I would have, right? And again, Gavin's mentioned it. Do you guys want to know what Jimmy exploded on us for, right? We had the audacity to interview Ryan Grimm. We're interviewing Ryan Grimm on our show. We're talking to him about the Build Back Better bifurcation. This is super weedsy stuff, but basically there was a contingency on the left that was like, hey, don't let them bifurcate Build Back Better because the Republicans are only going to break and vote one time. You have to tie the bills together and really pressure these motherfuckers. That didn't happen. We were having a good discourse, good exchange with that. Ryan Grimm was always super cool. He came on our show all the time when we were like really, really tiny.
That was awesome.
And Jimmy just loses his fucking mind telling us we better ask him about Assad and, you know, the chlorine attacks in Duma, which Jimmy was totally wrong about. It's been fucking debunked 100 times, everything that Jimmy was saying. And we were like, fuck you, dude. Eat a bag of dicks. We're conducting an interview. Go fuck yourself if you want to try and tell us how to do it in real time. And he was like, this will be the fucking end of you guys. And he tried to kill our career. That's the kind of unhinged, like, sociopath that Jimmy Dore is. It's like drunken lunatic.
Yeah. 100%. And then his idiot fans called us the Grimm Guard for months after that.
Oh, that's right.
Interviewing Ryan Grimm. Imagine giving a single fuck about it, or even thinking that's
I need one of his fucking
or wrong.
lights live on air.
Ryan Grimm, one of the best journalists of our fucking time. Like, what the fuck are you talking about? He had such a bone to pick with Ryan Grimm for no reason. I never understood why Jimmy hated Ryan Grimm so much. But yeah, he really tried his best to end our careers, to punish us. Because of the fact that we dared to have him on for an interview where we weren't like grilling him the whole time or like, you know, asking him all these questions that Jimmy Dore wanted us to ask him, which ironically Jimmy Dore himself refused to ask. Ryan Grimm was offering constantly to go on Jimmy's show and debate and hash it out. And Jimmy was too much of a pussy. He was too much of a bitch. So then he wanted us to do his dirty work. And when we didn't, he was like flooding the chat with negative comments while we were live. We were still like very new at our jobs. We were had been doing it for maybe a year or a year and a half. Yeah. And this was really like nerve rattling. Like we were trying to do an interview with someone we really respect, Ryan Grimm. I think this was the first time he'd been on the show.
It was.
And Jimmy Dore is fucking blowing up our chat, harassing us. And we're like, what the fuck, bro? Like, this is literally like destroying our ability to stay calm and do this job. It was crazy.
That is crazy.
Again, you have to, like, I'm 28. Gavin will be 28 in like fucking 5 months. And, you know, I would never, ever even dream of finding a channel run by two 22-year-old guys fresh out of fucking college who are trying their best to break into YouTube with 20,000 YouTube subscribers and fucking just try and annihilate the shit out of them. You have to be a real sick guy. They called us the Grim Jobbers. Oh, are you gonna give another Grim job? Like, it was...
no, they call us the Grim Guard. The Grim Job was when Ryan Grimm blocked Jimmy Dore. And then Jimmy coined the term #Grim.
We used to get comments that said Grim Job all the time, though.
Yeah, we did.
The Grim Jobbers. All kinds of shit like that. It was just a deranged thing, and obviously we don't give a shit. We're grown ups. It's like I can have a million wackadoodles tell me that I'm fucking selling out, man, because I don't worship Assad. Like, let me show you this guy that just got an award from the Assad government. See, he's the one that's gonna leak it to you. It'd be like getting a MAGA award and being like, see, Donald Trump's not in the Epstein files. It's like, you fucking lunatic. Like, you would never buy that.
And also because of the fact that he was sending super chats to harass us, being like, ask Ryan Grimm this, ask Ryan Grimm that. Then in his next live show, I don't know if you remember this, but he was trying to imply that we like owed him that money.
I actually remember this shit. Oh my god, I was watching fucking
he was like,
TYT a lot during this time.
They didn't even respond. They didn't even answer me. Can I get that money back? I was like, what the fuck, bro? That's not how a super chat works. We don't have to respond to every unhinged thing that gets sent our way just because there's like $3 attached to us. Like, what the fuck? Either way, the point is that Jimmy Dore is completely unhinged. I'm sure everyone in this chat knows that by now. We're not exactly breaking news, nor is Kyle. This subject has been documented extensively, specifically here at the Vanguard. But still, it's nice to see Kyle finally breaking his silence on that one, blowing the whistle, much as Corin already has on this show. Like I said, go back in time 3-4 years ago, find that clip. You can hear Corin telling the exact same story.
Yep. So anyway, pretty interesting stuff, but there's more in the store, right, Gavin? There's another clip for us to react to.
Yeah. Shout out to Kyle and Corin for doing the show, and shout out to all the wonderful people that send in questions, because it gives us a lot of stuff to talk about and react to on our show. We really appreciate that. And this is a juicy one. So I'm excited to hear Kyle comment on the current state of his relationship with the Young Turks. You know, it's been a bit rocky over the years between Kyle, Jake, and Anna. We've covered all of that. So I was definitely excited to hear Kyle address where they're at right now.
Yeah.
Guy who says, I am the system.
Yeah.
Is Harden coming off the bench or no?
No, I think he's starting.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
Googly moogly. Stop BB, thanks for the $8. Hey, man, massive fan from Australia. Is there any tension between you with Cenk and Anna, or do you believe overall they are still a force for good? No, I mean, I don't really talk to them. You know what I'm saying? Like, we don't talk. Like, there's no regular DMing or regular text messaging or anything like that. Anytime you see commentary between me and them, it's like literally with them on the show. Like Cenk came on Crystal, Kyle, and Friends a couple times. Sometimes we debate, sometimes we don't. But you're seeing the full extent of our conversation. So is there tension? Not really. Are they generally a force for good? I'd say it depends on the issue, right? It depends on the issue in question. I think they're good. I think they're really good on Gaza. I think they sort of
actually agree. I agree with
the
them
fight
on
when
this.
it comes to that issue.
Otherwise,
I think for a long time, in my opinion, they were being way too centristy. But I think maybe that might be beginning to change a little bit because everybody's now waking up to the horror show that is the Trump regime, and they're realizing that like there is no splitting the difference here. It's like everybody's got to be all in against this because this is literally fascism, So
right?
Yeah, I would just say off air we don't have much of a relationship, right? But on air I've talked to Cenk, I've talked to Anna, and probably will again in the future. And overall, I think it depends on the issue whether or not they're net positive or not.
I would say they're net positive. I would agree with Kyle when it comes to Gaza. I would disagree on pretty much everything else. And what really frustrates me about them, and which is why I would really be, skeptical of the,
God, it's late.
Claim that they would be at any point a force for good, is the fact that they constantly misrepresent themselves as a progressive channel when they are in fact a centrist channel.
Yeah.
But I think a lot of Kyle's analysis right here is really rooted in the fact that
they're
he
definitely
has
a centrist
personal
channel
philosophy of not creating
they're more like
any
CNN than
or
anything.
taking shots at other people that he views as even nominally on the left. As he mentioned, he wants everybody lined up in the fight against fascism.
Yeah, 100%. I understand where Kyle's coming from. He has a long history with Cenk and Anna, going back to co-founding Justice Democrats with Cenk Uygur, and then resigning from Justice Democrats in solidarity with Cenk Uygur. So he's been through a lot with Cenk and Anna. As I said, their relationship has been pretty rocky. He sort of got thrown under the bus by TYT after he refused to condemn Jimmy Dore, as speaking of Jimmy Dore, as hard or as intensely as they wanted him to, following the aforementioned debacle with Anna Kasparian.
I see.
Kyle tried to sort of, put out a nuanced statement that Anna interpreted, I suppose, as like both sidesism. So, that resulted in an issue. Then they ended up repairing the relationship, becoming friendly again. And now we're here, right? Kyle has voiced criticisms of the Young Turks about their commentary over the last year or two in the lead up.
Okay, here's some more drama.
Vicular has been arrested on what are felony charges. We're going to get into that today on The Legal Mindset. We teach you to be your own judge. Of course, I'm Andrew Esquire, American attorney. This is the fast facts version, the quick and dirty version of the latest in legal news. So jumping right into it with our PowerPoint here today, Clavicular, a kick streamer, has been arrested in Scottsdale, Arizona. Here's one version that I saw of the quote-unquote mugshot, and here's another one over here in this picture, and him as well as him being arrested on stream. You see him smiling right there as he's getting hauled off by the police. So what are we talking about here? What are the charges he's facing? So, and obviously, once again, this is Scottsdale, Arizona, dealing with the Scottsdale police. So obviously an application of Arizona law. So let's look at what we have here. In general, we have Clavicular, whose real name is Braden Peterson. He's a famous kick streamer and quote unquote looks maxer. That's Braden. In case you guys don't know that term. That's something used in a little bit of the manosphere red pill community for those that are trying to maximize their looks in order to women. That's his thing. Just the other day, he had some women fawning over him in an ASU frat party, although he got quote-unquote frame-mogged by some folks that were a little bit more jacked than him. But that said, that's not relevant to the arrest charges here. That's just a little bit of the background on who this guy is, in case you don't know. These three charges that he was arrested on were forgery which is felony possession of a forged instrument. This is a fake ID. Then he had use of the false ID. So that's a misdemeanor. So the possession of it is a felony. The use of it was a misdemeanor. And then you've got possession and use of drugs, which is a class 4 felony. Now, the drugs are the most serious thing.
Yeah,
now, at first, I saw it reported as white powder, but then I saw, and there's a clip from the courtroom that says that it is actually in a single loose Adderall pill.
Mr. Peters had been live streaming himself approaching individuals in Old Town Scottsdale asking if he could obtain Adderall.
Huh?
That's me. Holy want some good stuff?
So if it is indeed a single loose Adderall pill, that's going to be a lot different than if we're looking at some sort of white powder, which could be, cocaine, it could be meth, it could be ketamine, it could be a lot of things. So we don't know exactly what that is, and that's going to vary. That would vary extremely. And when we get into the charges here, we see all of these have been pressed. We've got F4 felony 4, F4 felony 4 for the dangerous use and possession and the forgery, and then we've got M1 for misdemeanor. So in the aggregate, yes, these can carry severe time if he was convicted of all of these. But another thing we have to remember is he's a first-time offender. So if it's Adderall, a prescription would be the thing to negate the charge. So you'd want to get a prescription in there, and if you're his defense, you're going to want to, the first thing you're going to want to do is look for a way to mitigate that. If it's a white powder, that's going to be a little different. There's not going to be a prescription for cocaine or for meth. Maybe if it was ketamine, maybe. I mean, I don't know if there's other things, but usually that would be in a more prescribed form. This is something where Adderall, you need that prescription. So if it really was one loose pill of Adderall, you're going to need a prescription to negate that or some other way to let you be in possession of that. The forgery and ID charges are going to be the hardest to fight because that's more of a per se thing. Hey, you did it. The defense is trying to argue intent and saying, hey, there's no intent to defraud, which is required under Arizona law. And if they're able to mitigate with intent, maybe the use, they can knock out the misdemeanor charge. But the possession, I think that's something that is going to be a little bit more difficult for them. So we're going to have to see how they handle that. But those are still going to stick, even if the prescription is there for Adderall, right? You're going to still have to fight the forgery charges. So on this, you've got a February 23rd status conference and a February 26th preliminary hearing. Those are both coming up. So we'll keep you guys posted when those actually come out. And in my judgment here, these are likely going to be relatively minor charges because he's a first-time offender.
Okay.
So because he's a first-time offender, you've probably got probation, drug testing. You might have other checkups, other sort of requirements he's supposed to do. More severe punishment would hinge on the drug charge, but it appears to be a small quantity. If it's one loose pill, or let's say he had a little bit of powder on him, right? It's just
that's it.
Personal.
Oh, well.
Jessica. I don't know. Your thoughts.
Public is turning against Trump.
I don't know. Trump has been around for too long as a feature in our lives to do this as like
Not
I'm
long
writing,
enough.
and it shall go on forever. It feels to be like I'm, writing him off. But what they're talking about is a very real change in sentiment. So they say, the base is with him, and the MAGA base has been with him since he, came down the golden escalator, though there has been a big drop in his support among non-college voters down to -9.
Yeah, they got his fucking eyes,
The economy
bro.
is what people show up to vote on, and his ratings on the economy are absolutely dismal. Of the average of polls, it's at -18. You have unemployment up, jobs numbers have been consistently terrible. You have Peter Navarro out today kind of pre-butting what will be a bad jobs report. Tax Foundation had a new report saying that the average American household paid an extra $1,000 last year because of the tariffs. It'll go up to $1,300.
More like $2,000.
Consistently, voters say, though, Trump isn't focused on the things that they care about, which is lowering prices. And I think that there are two plot lines that the administration, for obvious reasons, really want to ignore, but matter to voters. First of all, Donald Trump and his family, their corruption. This story, Andy McCarthy's doing a series for the National Review on it. All the crypto money that they're taking
all the money, dude,
from the UAE and others is a really big deal. And then what's going on with the Epstein files. And I'm not making this partisan. I'm saying it is an elite problem. John Ossoff is now calling it the Epstein class and even name-checked George Soros in his campaign rally. If it's us versus them, and Trump is just saying, ignore it, it's going to go away. And you have Howard Lutnick, for instance, testifying that he went to the island in 2012 and he said in 2000.
You never cared about this until now because Trump won. This is just like immigration. You didn't care about all the illegals until Trump won, and now you care about Epstein. Trump's fine under Epstein.
I didn't, and I was obviously very careful to say that.
We all cared about Epstein.
I'm saying that he has an Epstein files problem, and he knows it.
No one has a problem more than the Clintons.
Who cares? Don't elect Bill Clinton.
You brought it up. I don't care. You
don't
brought
vote
it up.
for Bill Clinton. Bill, if you're going to run, don't do it.
You brought it up.
Yeah, what
By
the
way,
fuck?
you mentioned the economy.
Yeah,
inflation is great. It's the only reason why look at everything Trump's gone after: immigration, the economy, foreign policy, all huge wins. But it's 2 against 1. He's got to fight the Democrats and the media. It's always going to be that way. We're used to it. We'll take it. But wherever Trump succeeds, you're always going to get this blowback, and it's a trade-off. The more Republicans love him, and they do, the more insane the vitriol will be, because that means he's doing his job. See, I would be worried if he was getting strange new respect from The View or Morning Joe or Dear Jessica saying, you know what, I think he's really grown. He's really evolved. But the fact that you hate him now more than you've ever hated him meant that he is fulfilling his promise, and I like that.
Jesse, to that point, 8 out of 10 Republicans love MAGA, and that's up from 7 out of 10 2 years ago. And this is a repeat.
What do you mean?
Note from
That's
the Dems,
not possible.
Every time something happens or they manufacture something, this
can't be possible.
This is the end of this is the end of him. No, actually, it's not the end of him. He keeps getting better and better things.
Just the beginning.
3rd term.
I love it.
I have a hat that says it.
You know, Jessica comes on the show and she gets so excited to spew all this garbage, and you can just tell how frantic she is just to get it all out.
Because you guys interrupt me nonstop.
She's right.
Absolutely nothing. The country hates you guys. We don't trust you. You ran everything into the ground. We're pulling ourselves back. It'll take a little time. It's fine. We're going to handle things from now on, all right? We're going to handle the economy. We'll handle the border. We've already handled crime. You guys just sit back and whine about the problems you created. We're not even listening to you anymore. And I say that with respect.
Dana, we're listening to you. What do you
And I would just say that the economy is poised to boom, and possibly at a time that's very good for him.
5.7%.
The I don't know what 5.7.
GNP.
Okay. Well, we'll see.
GDP.
I don't know. But the
whatever.
Dow Jones is closing at
GOP.
50. People look at their 401ks. They feel pretty good. The tax bills are going to be less, and the tax returns are going to be better, and the and the gas prices are way down. So all of those things could really help. But there are headwinds, and Republicans have shown a willingness, and independents in particular, to take a flyer on President Trump in the midterms. That could happen again, but everybody's starting out at this point with Republicans in a better position than they thought they were going to be because of the economy.
Click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You won't get it anywhere else.
Football, that kind of football, is ours. They call it American football.
Are the right in America becoming the very wokies that we thought we'd got rid of?
In a lot of ways, yes. I'm kind of tired of getting outraged by the same thing every year. I think it's ridiculous for people, especially on the right, who get their panties in a bunch and clutch their pearls about everything that Hollywood does. Maybe I'm just a dumb American. No, I don't even know who that is.
You don't know who Pavarotti is? Now, you are a world authority on somebody called Clavicular, who I have to say hasn't brushed my life particularly.
He is a look-smaxer. Do you know what look-smaxing is?
President Trump and MAGA skillfully rode the post-woke wave as that whole joyless mindset came crashing down. The left have become the sneering, censorious ogres demanding puritanical fealty. Conservatives were the ones having a laugh, to quote J.D. Vance, as star athletes honored the Trump YMCA dance and a nation bathed in woke tears. Well, last year's Super Bowl really proved the point. The ads were full of bros, burgers, and bikinis. The new president got a standing ovation. But how quickly things can change. Of course, it's difficult to maintain that renegade spirit when you're actually in power. You have to make unpopular decisions. People realize that you can't, in fact, please everybody all the time. And in light of the furious reaction to Bad Bunny's spectacular and largely non-political halftime show at this year's Super Bowl, it's worth asking whether the culture is now shifting. Is MAGA becoming a bit thin-skinned, a bit sneering? a bit censorious, a bit.
They're a little bit woke.
Oh! Brett Cooper, host of the Brett Cooper Show, is a foremost cultural commentator. She joins me to discuss all that and more. Brett, welcome back to Uncensored.
Happy to be here. Hope you are well, Piers.
Very well. Are the right in America becoming the very wokies that we thought we'd got rid of?
Yeah.
Oversensitive, very hypocritical, getting enraged by absolutely everything.
In a lot of ways, yes, but I don't really think that that's a new thing. I think that we were just more united in fighting the left, and the left was, I think, a bigger creature rearing its head. But now, because the right feels very fractured and we're debating a lot of big issues and people are, trying to find out who they're going to follow, especially in light of the assassination of Charlie Kirk. And I feel like he was just such an important person who held the coalition together, that I think there is just a lot of fracturing. And I talk about this on my show all the time, but I do feel like there is a lot of hypocrisy and people are getting outraged over things that I would normally just kind of let roll off us. Like, you were talking in your intro just there about the Super Bowl and Bad Bunny. And I didn't like the performance. Like, it wasn't my cup of tea. I don't listen to his music. I think it is hilarious that in leading up to the Super Bowl, the football team, the Seahawks, their social media team did a funny video where it was like, hey, they talked to all the players and they said, so what is your favorite Bad Bunny song? And all the players were like, I have no idea. Like, I don't listen to him. They could not name a single song. One of the players even said, Pierce, was like, I don't listen to her. Like, didn't even know that it was a man. And so it's not my cup. I don't think it was a lot of people's cup of tea. But I really am not spending a lot of breath getting angry about it, because I'm kind of tired of getting outraged by the same thing every year. People were upset about Kendrick Lamar.
But you know what I thought, though, Brett? Do you know what I thought? It was interesting, because I didn't know much about Bad Bunny, if I'm honest with you. Really, like very little at all. I'd barely heard of the guy, right? And then I discovered, after the Grammys, where he made his sort of quite political speech there, I thought, well, who is this guy? So I then did a bit of research. And I discovered he's the biggest singing star on planet Earth. He is Spotify's most downloaded guy year in, year out for the last few years. He is a Latino rapper of unbelievable popularity and success.
Talent.
He's also, in many ways, a kind of American dream story. He comes from Puerto Rico, from very little money or anything, or privilege. His dad was a truck driver. His mum was a teacher. And he worked hard. He was part of a God-fearing Catholic family. He went to church. He was, by all accounts, a very good young man. And he gets into music and he progresses and he keeps working hard. He's very disciplined. No real scandal attached to him. And he becomes the biggest Latino rapper in history and the pinnacle for any entertainer of any kind, if you're in America, and for the rest of the world, frankly, is to be the halftime show at the Super Bowl. So I woke up this morning in London. I didn't look at social media deliberately. I decided to just watch the whole halftime show from start to finish.
Liar.
And get my own mind up. And I loved it. I thought as a spectacle, it was the best thing I've ever seen in halftime. I think the best show was probably my
blah.
And, I think it was obviously made for television. Like, it was not, there are clips now that are circling from people in the stands who paid, the $10,000 or whatever it is to be at the Super Bowl. They couldn't see what was going on. Like, this was not a performance that was for these football fans in the stands. They were just seeing the people dressed as grass dancing around. They saw Bad Bunny running in and out through all the houses and the sets. But this was made for television. This was for Bad Bunny's fans, people all around the world. It definitely is part of the NFL's huge push to, I would say, make the NFL more international. They're playing games overseas now. They're trying to bring in bigger fans. That seems like why they brought him on and why they made it so for television instead of just having him stand on a stage. So that was cool, but I can understand the frustration of people who were sitting there going, I can't even see what the man is doing. Anyway, so it was interesting. He's not my favorite performer. I also didn't love, as an American who speaks English, that I couldn't understand any of it. I think that having subtitles would have been a very easy way to include more people.
How do you do that?
And try to find some common ground there. And I do think that
watch it and then watch it later with the titles.
Hang on.
Hello?
54 million Americans have Spanish as their first language at home. Okay, and that number is accelerating very, very fast.
See, and some of us are practicing as a second language.
The second most used language in America. And as
It
I
is
pointed out to other guests
bueno.
this week, Americans don't even speak American. You speak my
Yeah.
language, English, right? You already speak a foreign language. It's mine, right? So this idea that because it's Spanish, all hell has to break loose when 54 million people in the country speak Spanish as their first language, and many,
I don't
many
think that all
millions
hell
more
needs to break
understand
loose,
it. Age hits.
He was actually singing, you know, different things from his portfolio. If we could all be on the same page and know what he was saying and be able to revel in that, so it wasn't just a visual experience, regardless of who the performer was, I think that'd be great because it is in America. This is an American sport.
But the point I would make, the point I would make is Kid Rock's lyrics can be pretty fruity.
Oh, for sure. And so I agree with that. And I think that conservatives who, you know, all hail Kid Rock, I think that that's kind of ridiculous. If you are angry about somebody else's, you know, sexual songs and you're angry about whatever, like I'm not a big fan of Kid Rock. I've never met the guy, but I did appreciate in his performance. And, you know, if we're talking about what was more traditional and appealing to people, you know, he started off with one of his songs from, you know, the late 90s, early 2000s, where he was, you know, singing about sex and lewd acts and that sort of thing. And then there was this whole transformation where then there was like an acoustic Christian hymn that was played. And then he comes on stage as himself and he sings that Cody Johnson song. So it really, very much like Bad Bunny, he also had, you know, a story that he was telling. And then he shows himself being redeemed and trying to find God. So there was a reason for that. And because it was in English, we could all hear that. But to your point about Kid Rock, I agree. I think it's ridiculous for people, especially on the right, who get their panties in a bunch and clutch their pearls about everything that Hollywood does and what people in the mainstream media do to then, for example, with Nicki Minaj, just welcome her with open arms when, yes, she's hanging out with Donald Trump and Mike Johnson, but she's still posting videos like twerking on private jets. Like, I'm not going to say, oh, she's super conservative.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And the truth is, if Donald Trump, if Bad Bunny had said in the last few weeks, I quite like Donald Trump. Donald Trump's statement last night on Truth Social would not have been, this is the worst halftime act of all time. It would have been, Bad Bunny crushed it. I love Bad Bunny. In other words, none of this is really that intellectually honest. It's just tribal. It's politically tribal. That's it.
Well, I think it's people wanting to be outraged over something, which has just become such a tenet of American politics.
What do you mean? That's what you used to yap about on your channel, girl.
To be angry about. We always need to be fighting over the next thing. And it also appears to become so serious. And I think this is something I've also talked a lot about on my show recently, where it's now if you joke about something, if you say, oh, I found this funny, this is, you know, kind of objectively humorous, but it's offending other people. It's like, how could you do this? This must be an endorsement of this. It's like, no, I'm not endorsing, for example, Bad Bunny's politics. I'm not endorsing him burning the American flag and, you know, on stage with his shows or whatever it is, but I kind of enjoyed the sets. Like, that was fine. But things just can't be nuanced. I think we've become so partial to outrage and tribalism. So, yeah, completely agree with you there.
But I think that's, I wrote a whole book about this. I just think we've become such a boring, oversensitive society where people pretend to be outraged by everything, but they're not really. Like, if I go out with friends to a pub or whatever, whether it's in New York or LA or London or whatever it is, we have a totally different conversation about stuff. Everyone's laughing about all these things.
No, they
and then I turn on social media. Or
not anymore, you dumb fuck.
Shows like mine. And everyone's raging away like this is the end of the world because Bad Bunny, you know, said something about ICE, which, by the way, ICE has not had a great month. You know, let's just be crystal clear. You know, there are some things that ICE does that I agree with, but when you're shooting American citizens in the streets, it's probably not great for the image of ICE. You're allowed to be, as an American, as Bad Bunny is, you're allowed to be pissed off about that. A lot of people were. I was. And you should be able to express that under your First Amendment rights without the world caving in or without it being disqualifying for performing at the Super Bowl.
Yes, and to further that point, you are allowed to say all of those things. We live in the greatest country on earth, in my opinion, where you are allowed to criticize your government and speak your mind, but you are also not entitled to an audience, which why, you know, that's why it's great that USA offered an alternative. So if you're outraged over it, you know, turn your outrage to something positive, support the people who are doing something that is more in line with your values. And it's great that there was an alternative. And if you don't want to watch Kid Rock, there's the Puppy Bowl. I don't know if you watch the Puppy Bowl, Pierce. It's amazing. You can turn on the Puppy Bowl and you can watch the rescue dogs. Last night's was extra depressing. They filmed it in October, but one of the dogs was like the special needs dog that was in this little.
I've got something you'll like, because I broke my hip recently, and one of my sons gave me this. I don't know if you can see it.
That's great.
Be the person your dog thinks you are. Now, the slight problem
showing off her wedding ring.
I have 2 Burmese cats, and they're much more inscrutable. But I do think, as a general rule of thumb, be the person your dog thinks you are. If more people thought that, I think we'd be in a much better place, right?
I'm glad you've solved politics, Pierce.
How has motherhood changed you, Brett, in your outlook on life?
Oh, gosh. In every way, it completely changes your life. I think the first thing that comes to mind that I've been saying a lot is that I give less of a crap about things now. A lot of things, sort of in line with what we're talking about with politics, things seem less relevant to me in a lot of ways and less worthy of getting angry about. And I'm more interested in, just being honest and speaking my mind and not really caring if I offend people and finding humor in things.
We got to finish this,
I think a lot of that goes
we
back
got to
to,
finish
this.
this.
Is
Good night. She's boring.
Cultural flavor, a little spice
She's
in President
boring.
Trump's campaign events. The rest of it is in English, which is accessible, and he's promoting it. I'm not saying we can't have a little
we didn't finish
variety
it
or
last
exotic flavor in life, but it's kind of like the old melting pot imagery of America. If you put a little foreign spice in, that might improve your food. If the entire meal is just curry or something, it's going to be a little too much. It's going to be too many tamales in the pot is going to ruin the Super Bowl performance.
Hey, Pierce, can I ask Michael a question?
That's really disturbing and disgusting. Well,
That's a disgusting joke, actually.
Tamales are very disgusting. I agree.
Let me bring in Glenn quickly. Then I'm going to Scott.
If you look at the last 20 years of Super Bowl presenters, huge numbers of them have been non-American, going back to the aftermath of 9/11 when we had the Rolling Stones and U2 and Paul McCartney and The Who, all kinds of groups that are not even American, and there's all sorts of other ones as well. And those are extremely politicized musicians, to say nothing of people like Madonna and others who have hosted halftime shows. I don't understand why they are totally fine. These non-Americans, these foreigners, these people who are highly politicized. And then suddenly Bugs Bunny, who's an extremely popular artist among most Americans, maybe not everybody here, but among most Americans.
Greenwald, you're asking an obvious question and you know it, sir.
Central figure to American entertainment and culture is suddenly such a problem. Like, what is the difference between him
happy to explain.
and past musicians?
Oh, you are?
I'm happy to explain. So all of the foreign artists you're citing
can I jump in and respond at some point?
Come from England. 1 second, Mark. It's more Glenn was asking me a question. The one similarity that they all have is they all speak English, and our country, in fact, comes from England. So we have a shared cultural patrimony, and all of those artists are beloved in America. They're all libs. There's no doubt about it, but they're kind of polite about it. They're not in your face. They're not, for instance, pushing transvestitism and like guys
transvestitism. Oh my God! I never even heard that.
Federal law enforcement. They're not
what is
pushing that like Bad Bunny.
transvestitism?
So I think it's just different in kind.
Madonna is not
we have very
pushing
different memories of Madonna.
If I could just point
pushes slightly deviant sexual
stuff.
Not as deviant as Bad Bunny, but a little bit. I agree.
If I could point out the elephant as the token Englishman here, if I could point out the elephant in the room, which you've just hinted at, you don't even speak American. You guys speak English. You speak a foreign language, which is mine. It's my language.
We perfected that language, Pierce. That's the distinction.
Actually, in many ways, you've ruined it, and you know you have. Right, whole fire panel. I'm going to come back to you in a moment. I want to be joined now by Professor Scott Galloway, whose new campaign, Resist and Unsubscribe, calls on Americans to cancel ties with a host of brands in protest against ICE and President Trump. Scott, welcome back to Uncensored.
Scott Galloway.
It's good to be with you, Pierce. Glad to see you back in action.
Thank you. I would say fit and raring, but I basically hobbled up my high street for 20 minutes a day, and that's the limit of my range, but I'll take it. Small acorns. Just, first of all, do you have a view about Bad Bunny, about this whole
More
debate?
acorns, mate.
you know, I was in the UK. I didn't even watch this show. I saw clips of Bad Bunny. He's the most popular artist in the world. I just hope he had a nice time. I hope the fans had a nice time. And it's just sort of disappointing that everything has to digress into a politicized argument. I hope, you know, my favorite commentary on the Super Bowl was from the account that's supposed to be Elmo, the Sesame Street character, and that is that he hoped that both teams had a really fun time. I just don't care. I'm glad. The majority of America now, under the age of 18, is now non-white. The NFL was a brilliant move to bring on an artist that's the most popular person in the world. So people watched it, seemed to enjoy it. It's not my kind of music, but I heard Tom Petty or George Michael wasn't available. So more power to him.
I didn't know much about him, but I got to say I really enjoyed it. But that's before I looked at social media and was instructed to hate it or love it. So let's get to what your campaign's about. Resist and unsubscribe.
I didn't look at social media,
mate. Those who are not
mate.
familiar with it, just in simple terms, articulate what the campaign
Liar.
is trying to achieve.
Well, I've been upset by some of the actions of the Trump administration, specifically as it relates to kind of a mass secret police, I think, terrorizing American cities is how I would describe it. And I think action absorbs anxiety, so I've taken my modest footprint and asked people to resist and unsubscribe. If you look at where Trump has backed away from policies, it's not because of protest or even the courts, it's been when the markets respond. So when he backed away from the notion of annexing Greenland,
it's true,
or away from punitive kind of irrational tariffs, it was when the bond market or the S&P collapsed. And right now, only 10 companies make up 40% of the S&P, and those companies are highly dependent upon subscription revenues. So I wanted to send a signal that people have kind of this weapon hiding in plain sight, and that is their non-participation, specifically to unsubscribe from big tech platforms. So I built a site, Resist and Unsubscribe, where you can learn how to easily unsubscribe from different big tech subscription platforms. I'm getting about 100,000 unique sites a day. I think we're going to get somewhere between 300,000 and 1 million unsubscriptions. But I want to send a signal to Americans that the most radical act in a capitalist society is non-participation, and that you have power to decide where you want to spend your money.
Yeah, that's really worked, Mr. Lib. Sure. It's really worked over the years.
Do you own stock in any of the big tech companies, you personally?
I do, and I've decided I'm going to sell. I own stock in Apple and Amazon. I've started selling my Apple stock. To be honest, Amazon's a tough one for me because it was my big tech stock of 2026. I want to be clear, Pierce. I don't have perfect moral clarity around this, and I'm not telling people which platforms they should unsubscribe from or if they shouldn't go into work. I'm a guy like you who has some economic security, so I don't want to lecture. I don't want to be generous with other people's time or money. What I'm suggesting is that if, like me, you go on, you can find out that you might have 3 Apple TV Plus accounts, you didn't realize it. But maybe you don't need 3 LLM subscriptions. I found out when I unsubscribed from Amazon Prime, I was a member of Amazon One Health, and I'd been paying $200 a year for the last 6 years. Do you need 2 ride-hailing programs? But I'm going to be transferring my assets out of Goldman Sachs into the RBC branch in Minneapolis. I'm going to sell down my Apple and my Amazon stock. I'm going to try and lead by example here, but I want to be clear. I'm not perfect. I will still always opt for my economic security. But the people who take time on a Saturday to protest, the people who are registering people to vote, the people some people decide not to go into work, that's a real sacrifice. What I'm stating is the biggest impact relative to the amount of disruption in your life is simply to unsubscribe from one or more big tech platforms. Do you need 6 streaming media platforms? But circling back, yeah, I've begun selling down my big tech stocks.
Let me bring the panel back. Michael Knowles, what's your response to this campaign by Scott Galloway?
Well, I think it's a desperation play, particularly after President Trump won the popular vote, particularly on the issue of mass deportations and illegal immigration, because what it sounds like the professor is doing is calling on people to punish tech companies, not merely for supporting Trump or in some cases in any way supporting Trump, but because he rightly observes they're propping up the U.S. stock market. And so the upshot of all of it is that the left wants to tank the U.S. economy in order to punish President Trump for the crime of having been elected by most American voters. I get it. You know, if my party had just been vanquished at the polls and if the other party had unified government, I might be trying to make these desperation plays too. I think it's contrary to the common good. I think if the U.S. economy actually did take a serious hit, that would really hurt people, some of the people that the professor claims to speak for. I think it's unpatriotic generally, but I kind of get it because they've tried their electoral and political and legal means. They tried to take out Trump 10 ways from Sunday, and it hasn't worked. So I guess the last attack is let's try to destroy Amazon.com.
Scott, your response?
Yeah, we don't know each other, but I can guarantee you there's almost nothing that's desperate about my life. Two,
not your life,
if you look
the
at
campaign
polls,
is what I'm saying.
If you look at polls, I would
I don't
argue
know
that
you.
polls are not the president's friend right now. And what we have is probably the most unpopular president at this point in the presidency in history. And two, everyone has the right to decide where they're going to spend money and where they aren't. And we have a very fragile economy right now with just 10 companies propping up the S&P and responsible for 70% of the earnings. And if somebody decides that they want to send a message to the administration and a message to the president and a message to these tech leaders who have been texting me how upset they are about these policies but not speaking out publicly, then I think that's their right. And
what
I think that an
policies do you
economic...
object to, Professor?
Well, I think a mass secret police shooting others in the face or denying a person's first second.
You're referring to...
Please stop interrupting me. I let you...
I'm just trying to clarify.
I let you prattle on with your trafe.
Oh, nice. Let's go.
Understand what you're attempting to say. You're referring to the Border Patrol and secret police?
Denying a person's First, Second, and Fourth Amendment rights, putting 10 bullets in him, a person, an ICU nurse
You're talking about Alex Preddy and Renee Good?
Is taking care of veterans, bringing the chaos of the border to every city, pretending, having a mass secret police, tariffs that make absolutely no economic success, and are declining or hurting the prosperity of Americans. I think there's a lot to choose from here.
Okay, so I wanted to clarify, because you say that you're very upset and we need to tank the U.S. economy in order to stop these awful Trump policies.
I did not say we need to tank the U.S. economy.
You said you want to damage the companies that are propping up the U.S. economy. So I'll just make the point.
I say it's your right to not support companies.
You say it's their right, but you're calling on them to do it. So you're encouraging them. This is not a neutral action. You're saying that you want that to happen, and you want it to happen because President Trump is deporting people, not through a secret police, through a very public police, which is Border Patrol and ICE.
Obama deported more people than Trump.
Excuse me, Professor.
Obama deported more people than Trump.
By the U.S. Congress and the laws that President Trump won the popular vote to enforce after years of lawless neglect by Joe Biden. That's what you're saying. And your example that you point to is when a woman drove her 4,000-pound SUV into an officer and he rightly shot her because of that. You're saying that this is justification to ignore the law, ignore the 2024 election, and destroy the U.S. economy. Real smart stuff.
So you believe, well, there's just not a lot of common ground here, sir. You believe that woman was properly shot?
Absolutely. Yeah, I think if you drive your car into a
oh my God, there's no common ground.
He's justified in shooting.
Let's agree to disagree, and if you want to support these firms, you can. I've decided not to.
Good call, dude.
All right, I think you've made an unpatriotic decision, and I'm pretty certain you're going to fail, but it's certainly your right to try.
Well, I appreciate you.
Unpatriotic decision. Fucking tell the guy out of
Finally, I mean, I've seen what you said about this on your own website. The most potent weapon to resist the administration is a targeted month-long national economic strike. A coordinated campaign that attacks tech companies and firms enabling ICE to inflict maximum damage with minimal impact on consumers. In sum, the shortest path to change without hurting consumers is an economic strike targeted at the companies driving the markets and enabling our president. Is there not a danger that if this is successful, and there is a big month-long economic strike, that it could precipitate a much bigger problem with the market and ultimately end up really damaging your average consumer? In other words, how do you control it? If it starts going into freefall, if it did have huge take-up, what's the control valve? How do you not become Dr. Frankenstein?
Well, I think it's pretty easy. I think when the president moves back from the kind of edge of fascism, when he stops this nonsense talk about annexing Greenland, the market's immediately recovered. When he decides that these irrational, sclerotic,
these guys
very anti-capitalist socialists like tariffs, where we're alienating our allies.
Yeah.
When the bond market crashes, he pulls back from that and the bond market recovers. So I think that any damage inflicted on these companies' growth or on the markets could easily be walked back by deciding that, okay, federal agents should not be wearing masks. I don't think it would be very difficult at all.
Weak.
One, I love that you're getting this movement the credit that I hope it achieves. But like all of these other decisions, they've been easily walked back. I'm not looking for a change in government. I'm not looking for people to be imprisoned. I'm looking for some basic decency and a respect for co-equal branches of government and for
Sure,
to
right.
listen to the US
I'm looking for
populace.
liberal
I distinctly
politics that we
believe
used to
clearly
have.
stated
Nope,
that they
fuck
think
you.
that these mass police actions have gone
I mean,
way
yeah,
too
that's a
far.
start, but
Professor Scott Galloway, great to have you back on Uncensored. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Pierce. Good to see you back.
Let's go back to the panel. I actually want to move on to
Gotta be more
different
aggressive, I
issue,
think.
which is
Kill the guy in the air.
issue of the Trump meme that he posted around midnight, which featured, well, we'll show a bit of it here, but it featured the Obamas as apes in a jungle, as cartoon apes. Now, as we know, originally the White House tried to explain this was part of a wider meme, which it was, which featured a number of politicians in the jungle. Although, as it quickly pointed out, there were no apes in the Jungle Book, so it didn't quite work. But it was part of a wider
Shoot 'em.
meme. That was the original explanation, with no apology or anything. But then, as the backlash began to spread, not just from people on the left, but also to Republicans, Donald Trump came out and said that actually it had been posted by a staffer late at night, erroneously. It shouldn't have been done.
Left.
He hadn't seen it. Now, as with all these things, let me start with you, Mark Lamont Hill, on this. As with all these things, I thought the best thing to do was to go and look at the original. Look at the original, which I did. The original clip which Trump reposted was 60 seconds long, of which the Obama bit was the last 3 or 4 seconds. It is entirely plausible to me that Trump never got to that bit, that he saw the stuff at the start, which was all about Biden and all these things he's been claiming about Biden's administration being hopeless and so on. It's quite possible to me that Trump, who hasn't got a great attention span, never got to it. It's also quite possible he's not telling the truth about the erroneous staffer and it was him that did it. We don't know. It's definitely a fact that the White House came up with one explanation and then he contradicted that with another. So I've seen the argument that obviously people say this shows he's a disgusting racist and blah, blah, blah. But do you accept the possibility that he just never saw it? And that actually, in the end, very late, they did delete it.
Their flight
and
side,
they
right side, right
acknowledged
side.
it shouldn't have been posted.
I can't imagine that the most thoughtful, nuanced, educated, and curious president in American history, the most stable genius in the history of the U.S. presidency, did carefully read every single thing that gets posted on Truth Social. I believe in his commitment to the job, and therefore I'm willing to accept that he saw it. But let's say, however implausible it is, that he didn't see it, that a staffer posted it. My first question would be, well, what kind of staffers do you have who would have this type of judgment? Now, everybody, Democrat, Republican, hires bad people. So I wouldn't hold him purely accountable for hiring a bad
Don't let her kill you.
Although I would suspect that the person he hired is not only bad, but racist. But if that were the case, the next step would be to say, hey, I hired a staffer who did a really awful thing, or not he himself, but perhaps the press secretary would say, hey, we made a bad choice. Somebody did something awful. The president didn't know about it. We got rid of them yesterday. And this is a non-issue. In fact, he may even look like an anti-racist hero. But instead, they tried to convince us that we shouldn't believe what we saw with our own eyes. They convinced us that we misunderstood, that we were taking it out of context. If we could only understand this movie, or if we could only understand how media works. I mean, there are all these narratives coming, not exclusively from the White House, but from other sources as well, that the problem was us, that our sensitive eyes and ears were the problem. And it was only after the backlash started coming from people like Tim Scott and others who said, look, Even we think this is bad. We love kissing the president's butt. We don't think anything is racist, and we still think, I don't know, maybe you shouldn't put the Obamas as monkeys. It was only then that they were able to take this third tack. It's the lying and the dishonesty and the misdirection that makes it hard to believe or trust any of it from them. And that's why I'm frustrated.
Japasobic, it's quite hard to know what to believe here, isn't it? Because of the changing narrative from the White House itself. And Mark raises a good point. If it was a staffer who did this erroneously late at night, given the obvious damage it caused to the reputation of the White House and the president, because it's blatantly racist, that part of that meme at the end, why is that person not being fired?
Yeah, look, Piers, I caught this a little bit late as far as everyone, when it was going viral, and I didn't even realize, to your point, that it was at the end of a longer
Mina
video,
left.
which, I think anyone's been on social media long enough, they've probably had something like that happen, where they post something where you watch part of it, and you think, oh, this is great, I'm going to retweet it, I'm going to embed it, and then suddenly there's something that pops up at the end that, you didn't intend to.
That doesn't happen.
I do kind of buy that that's probably what the explanation was as to what happened. I probably think they just missed the end. It was one of those autoplay deals. But at the same time, that being said, I would say that you got to tighten up the social media team, whatever that is. So if this was a staffer, you got to tighten that up. And certainly there's been turnover already in the social media team around the president, around the White House. Wouldn't be the first time. And as a staff, that you do actually have to overview what is getting posted on your account. You have to view what is going up, what is going out, because that's going to ultimately reflect on your
cooked, guys.
It's going to reflect on your White House. And so if you're doing social media for the president, guess what? That's your job. First and foremost, your full job.
Glenn Greenwald, I wonder how many people, when I look at the whole meme that was posted by Trump on his Truth Social, because I do think it changes the potential content, because it is 60 seconds long. The Obama thing just pops up out of nowhere, completely disconnected to what you previously watched. It's almost like it's, a conspiracy theorist, and it may not be a mad conspiracy, would almost suggest this has been done deliberately to trap the White House, or trap Trump, or trap people on the right to post this. Well, it could be. I've seen that positive, and it's not a mad idea. You put something right at the end of something they all love to look at, which is the earlier part of the meme absolutely is into the MAGA playbook about how awful Biden was, and then at the end you put something in there very quickly which is incredibly racist and offensive, and you hope people don't notice, which it looks to me like they didn't. Do you believe, Glenn, that Donald Trump saw that bit?
Fucking damage, dude.
Saw the Obamas as apes in a jungle and still posted it himself?
I honestly don't. And the reason why I don't is because Donald Trump has been in public life for 10 years. He's obviously made a lot of statements that have been controversial, polarizing. Lots of people found offensive.
Yeah, I don't care what you have to say. Bye. All right, chat. I got to go. I'll see you guys tomorrow.